everybody. If you're here today, you're here for story time. So let's begin by getting our storytelling circle from our storytelling box. Let's pop it on top. And we'll get our storytelling candle ready for our storytelling wish. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there lived a widow with her 3 sons. Her 2 eldest sons had left home and gone to work, and her youngest son, Pinkel, still lived at home. But he helped around the house and he did as many jobs as he could to help his mum. The 2 eldest boys, they didn't work so hard, and unfortunately, the masters who looked after them got fed up, and eventually they sent them home saying, "Unless you can work harder, we don't need you anymore." So the sons came home to Mum's house. And they lived there for a time, and the whole while Pinkel continued to work hard. Pinkel, they called him in scorn. This went on for a while, until Mum also got fed up. Said, "If you 2 boys are not going to work, then I've got to send you out. You need to work your own life." So the 2 boys got ready to leave and make their way in the world. But to the great sadness of Mum, Pinkel also decided that he could make his own way in the world, and he begged his mother to let him go with her 2 sons. Now, Mum really didn't want Pinkel to go, but she could see how much he wanted to go with his brothers. So eventually she agreed, but her heart was sad. So the day came when the 3 brothers left home. Mum stood in the doorway waving, "Bye! Safe journey!" And the 3 sons set off. They walked for days. Days and days and days and days. They couldn't find any work. They were getting very hungry. They'd put some supplies in their bags, but they were almost running out. And then as they came through the fields from Mum's house, they came to a big lake. And in the middle of the lake, they could see a little island. And it was becoming night time, so the sunshine had gone and the moon had come up in the sky. And there was starlight, but not much light. But from the island, there was a great light streaming over the lake. The boys saw the light and thought, "There must be someone there, some place where we can get some food and some rest." And as they came to the edge of the lake, they saw a little boat. So in they climbed, picked up the oars, and they rowed their way across the lake. Once they got to the island, they climbed out of the boat, got onto the land, and they followed the light to the house. Knock, knock, knock on the door. There in the doorway stood the ugliest woman the 3 boys had ever seen. But she wore a magnificent golden cloak, and behind her was a goat with golden horns and bells that tinkled the sweetest music. The boys looked at the woman. They could tell she was a witch. They were afraid, but they were also hungry. "Mother, will you let us stay the night? Please give us some food." The old crone looked at the boys. "This is not the place for you. We do not take visitors here. You need to continue to the other side of the lake. There you will find a palace, and there you can rest. Now go, before I change my mind." Exhausted, the three boys picked up their bags and continued back to their boat. They climbed into their boat, picked up the oars, and they continued to row to the other side of the lake. When they got there, the moon was fully up in the sky, and there was a little more light to see now. And then they saw in front of them a big castle. They walked up to the big gates at the castle. Knock, knock, knock. The gates opened. And in they went. It was the king who came to see them. He was in a good mood that day. And the three boys went to the king and said, "King, king, we are so tired and we really need some rest and some food. May we stay with you?" The king, feeling generous, said yes. The two boys he set to work in the stables, the two elder brothers. But Pinkel he was curious about. He wanted to learn a little bit more about him. So he set him to work as the page for the young prince. Well, the three boys, they ate, they rested, and life was pretty good. But the two brothers were jealous. They could see Pinkel talking with the king, talking with the prince, having a really great time, while they were stuck in the stables. They thought about this. What could they do? They had to teach Pinkel that he was the younger brother. They should be the ones working with the king. And then they remembered when they'd got to the lake that first time, what they'd seen was that brilliant light streaming over the lake. And they remembered that, yes, the witch had had a golden cloak. Yes, she'd had a goat with golden horns with bells. But the thing that was making the light was a big golden lantern that had hung over her doorway. Must be a magic lantern. The boys decided they were going to tell the king about this lantern. So the next time the king visited the stables, he usually went about once a week. The boys found a way to make sure that they were in front of him when he came in. "Good morning, boys," said the king. "How is your work today?" "Oh, it's great, thank you." You know, we were just talking about a beautiful golden lantern that we saw when we came to visit you that first time. It was amazing. It had the strongest, most beautiful glow you've ever seen. The king was taken with this story. "How can I get a lantern like this?" he asked the boys. The boys cunningly said, Pinkel could get the lantern for you, sire." The king went back to Pinkel and said, "Pinkel, I've heard about this golden great lantern that you saw. If you can get that lantern for me, I will make you live in the palace in the room next to me." Pinkel thought about it. How could he get this great lantern? He made a plan. And that night, after darkness had fallen, he packed his bag, went back to the lake, found the boat and rowed ever so quietly back where he could see the beautiful golden lantern shining over the lake. He climbed out of the boat. He made his way to the house on tiptoe, and he climbed up to the roof of the house. There was a chimney, and Pinkel looked down. He listened. He could hear the witch and her daughter talking together. They were cooking supper, and at the bottom of the chimney was a big cooking pot, and the daughter was stirring it. "Is that nearly ready?" said the witch. The daughter took a taste. "Yes, mother, I think it nearly is." She turned away from the cooking pot to get the bowls to put on the table. As she did so, Pinkel reached into his pack and got out a bag of salt he'd brought with him. He poured it down the chimney straight into the cooking pot, and then he waited. Back came the daughter. She put the bowls onto the table, laid out the knives and the forks and the spoons, and then she went and she put some soup into a bowl for her and a bowl for the witch. They sat down to eat. Pah! The witch took one mouthful. "What's this? There's too much salt in here. It's disgusting. Daughter, go and fetch me some water from the well so that we can make a new batch of soup." The daughter picked up the bucket ready to fill with water, and then she took down the golden lantern so that she could find her way to the well. One hand with the lantern, one hand with the pail, and she walked out through the forest to the well. There she set down the lantern on the ground so that she could see, and then she attached the pail to the well and lowered it so it could reach the water. As she was leaning right over, watching the pail go down, Pinkel sneaked up behind her, whisked up the lantern, and ran as fast as he could back to the boat. The daughter couldn't keep up with him, and he got to the boat, jumped in, put the lantern in, and started to row as fast as he could. As he was about halfway across the lake, the witch opened the door and saw the light bobbing across the lake. She knew in an instant what had happened. "Is that you, Pinkel?" she cried. "Yes, dear mother, it is I," said Pinkel. "Are you not a knave for stealing from me?" "Yes, dear mother, I am," said Pinkel. Take care," muttered the witch. "If you come back here, you shall not get away again." Pinkel made his way back to the palace, and in the morning he gave the golden lantern to the king. The king was delighted. He'd put Pinkel in the room next to him, right next to the king, and he said to him, "You shall have a third of my kingdom." Pinkel was delighted, but the brothers were furious. They couldn't believe that Pinkel had managed to get the lantern. God, they were so jealous. There they were in their stable while Pinkel had the room next to the king. They thought and they thought and they thought. And then they remembered the goat. You know what they did next? The next time the king came to visit, the boys were there and they were waiting for him. "Sire, did you like your golden lantern?" The king joyfully told them how beautiful the light was and thanked them for telling him that Pinkel could get it. The boys started to tell him about the goat with the golden horns and with the bells that played the sweetest music they'd ever heard. "Are you sure such a goat exists?" "Yes, sire. If you send Pinkel, he'll be able to get it for you, just like he got the lantern," cried the boys. The king went back to Pinkel, and the boys rubbed their hands. This would not be so easy to get. The king said to Pinkel, "If you can bring me the goat with the golden horns that plays the sweetest music from the bells that hang from them, I will give you another third of my kingdom." This was a bigger task. Pinkel went off and he thought, how was he going to do this? Then he had an idea. Again he waited till nightfall. He packed his bag and he set off. He went back to the boat and he rowed ever so quietly across the lake. He tiptoed out of the boat onto the land, and there he took his shoes off and walked to the house. So quiet. It was a dark night because it had been raining, so even the moonlight there was hardly any. Now the witch's front door opened outwards. So what Pinkel did when he got there, the door was open to let fresh air into the house. Well, he got a little bit of wood and he jammed it under the door so the door wouldn't close. Then he sneaked off and he hid in a bush. When it came to bedtime, the witch said to the daughter, "Daughter, close the front door so we can go to bed." She was very tired. Well, the daughter went to close the door, but what's the matter?" cried the witch. "I can't close the door," said the daughter. "Oh, just leave it," said the witch. "I'm so tired. There's just us here. Let's just go to bed. We can sort it out in the morning." So off they went to bed. Pinkel waited and he listened, and eventually he heard a He got to his feet and he snuck inside the cottage. He got his backpack, and this time it wasn't salt that was inside. This time he had some food. Put it in his hand and he went and put it on the floor in front of the goat. And the goat started to eat. While the goat was eating, Pinkel quickly took the other thing from his bag. He'd got some cotton wool and he started pushing it into the bells, quick as he could. In. By the time the goat had finished eating, all the bells were stuffed with cotton wool. When it had finished eating, Pinkel took it by the halter and led it from the cottage. Of course, the bells didn't tinkle because they were stuffed with cotton wool. So Pinkel led the goat down to his boat, climbed in, and rowed to the middle of the lake. When he got there, he took out all the cotton wool from the bells, and all of a sudden the bells started to tinkle, a bit like our storytelling box. It was a beautiful sound, and the sound woke the witch. She flew out of the front door. She knew what had happened. "Is that you, Pinkel?" she cried. "Yes, dear mother, it is I," said Pinkel. "Are you not a knave for stealing from me?" "Yes, dear mother, I am," said Pinkel. "Don't you come back here again, Pinkel. I will not let you get away again," cried the witch. Angrily, she turned round and she went back to bed. Well, Pinkel got home, and in the morning he took the goat and showed the king. He led it into the front room. The king was delighted. What an amazing thing to have! No other king had a goat like this, and no other king had a lantern that threw such beautiful light everywhere. He kept his promise, and he gave Pinkel another third of his kingdom. Pinkel was a very happy man. But the two boys were just beside themselves. How could Pinkel do this? They schemed and they schemed while they cleaned out the stables. And then they remembered the golden cloak. Well, the witch wore that cloak. There was no way Pinkel would get that. So the next time the king came to the stables to see his horses, the two boys were waiting. "Sire, did you like the goat that we told you about? We knew Pinkel would get it for you." "Yes," said the king. "Such an amazing thing to have." "Well, sire," said the boys, "we know of something even better. The witch has a golden cloak. She keeps it wrapped around her. It is the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. It sheds light 10 times more than the lantern." Well, you can guess that the king, when he heard about the cloak, well, he had to have it. He called Pinkel to him and he said, "Pinkel, if you can get me that golden cloak, I will give you my daughter in marriage, and I will let you inherit my throne." Pinkel was excited. His daughter was beautiful. He very much wanted to marry her. So he thought, and he thought, and he thought. This was quite scary, actually. How on earth would he get the golden cloak? He had this idea and this idea, but none of them would do it. But maybe this idea. Well, he had to try. Well, this time Pinkel didn't go at night. He went by day to the witch's cottage. He went back to the boat, picked up the oars and rowed across the lake. He'd got his bag over his shoulder. When he got to the shore, he climbed out of the boat, and he walked up to the front door of the witch's cottage. He knock, knock, knocked on the door. The witch answered the door. "Is that you, Pinkel?" she cried. "Yes, mother dear, it is I," said Pinkel in a very humble voice. "Do you dare to come back here when you've stolen my magic lantern, my magic golden lantern, and my golden goat with the golden bells and its beautiful music?" "Yes, mother dear, I'm very sorry for what I've done," said Pinkel. The witch looked at him and laughed. "Do you expect me to feel sorry for you? You must die for what you've done to me." She went into her kitchen and started to sharpen her biggest knife. Pinkel was actually very, very afraid now, so afraid he was shaking. "Mother, mother," he said, falling to the floor. "Mother, please, please don't kill me." So Pinkel looked at her and said, "Mother, if I must die, please let me have one more meal, for I am very hungry. You can poison it if you like." The witch looked at him. I guess I can do that." So she started to mix a meal, and she put it on the fire, and she started to stir. When it was ready, she got some poison leaves and sprinkled them into the food. And then she got a bowl and she gave it to Pinkel. Pinkel started to pretend to eat. "Oh, it's delicious, mother," he said. And as the witch turned round to stir the food again, he quickly grabbed a bag from his backpack and tipped the food into the bag, popped it back in his backpack. And he held up the empty bowl to the witch. "Mother, could I have some more, please? I'm so hungry." The witch looked at him and said, "If you must, but you will soon be dead." She put some more food into the bowl and gave it to Pinkel. Again, he pretended to eat hungrily. And as the witch turned away, he emptied the food into the bag in his backpack. He put the bowl down on the floor, and then he pretended to writhe. "Ah! Ah! Ah, mother! Mother! Oh!" And Pinkel pretended that he was dead. Now the witch began to clean up the kitchen. She cleaned the cauldron, and she cleaned up the knife and the spoon. And then she went to rebuild the fire. Now her daughter had gone out earlier to collect some firewood. It was raining and dark, so she knew it would take her some time, but she still hadn't come back. "Where is that daughter of mine? She's so lazy," said the witch. "I'll have to go and find her." She opened the door and looked outside. It was still raining quite heavily. "Well, I'm not taking my beautiful cloak out there," she said. So she took it off and she hung it up by her bed, and then off she went to find the daughter. As soon as she'd gone, Pinkel jumped up. He grabbed the golden cloak, folded it up and pushed it into his bag. And then he ran as fast as he could from the house to the boat, jumped in, picked up the oars and started to row out to the middle of the lake. And then when he got there, he took the cloak out of the bag and tied it round his neck, and it flew out behind him. All of a sudden there was golden light everywhere across the lake. The witch saw what had happened. She ran to the edge of the lake. "Is that you, Pinkel?" "Yes, dear mother, it is I," cried Pinkel. "Are you not a knave for stealing my golden cloak?" "Yes, dear mother, I am," cried Pinkel. "Don't you dare come here again," cried the witch. "You will never leave again." Pinkel continued to row to the other side of the lake, where he climbed out, walked back to the palace, and he gave the golden cloak to the king. The king was over the moon. He had the magic lantern. He had the goat with the magic golden horns with the bells on them. And now he had the golden cloak. And just as he'd promised, Pinkel got to marry his daughter. It was a beautiful celebration, lovely sunshiny day, and Pinkel was the happiest man alive. And when the king died eventually, Pinkel became king, and he wore the golden cloak all the time. He never took it off. As for the witch, without her 3 magic items, she decided to live a peaceful life with her daughter in the forest on the lake. And the 2 brothers, well, they continued to work in the stables, and they grumbled and they groaned, but they didn't do anything else. And that's the end of this story. So let's blow out our storytelling candle, and let's put away our story circle until next time. Bye-bye.